Okay, it is Training Tuesday once again, and we're 5 minutes late, 11:35 on the 21st. It's my sister's birthday today. So we're gonna just say a couple of things that don't make any sense for a minute while you guys get on and we make sure the sound's rolling and everything's working. And then we're gonna get started. You may or may not know this, but I spent a couple of weeks earlier this month or late last month hanging out with our support team on support chat, taking support chats. You might have gotten me answering your questions. Maybe I told you the right answer. Maybe not, you never know. It was an enlightening experience taking a bunch of support chats. I think I am up to about 130 or 150 chats I took over the little period of time that I was doing that, when I could squeeze in the hours. And yeah, it was really cool experience overall, just getting a different, I hang out in the Facebook community on purpose. That's my way of making sure that I'm connected to the community and understand where you guys are at and what you're working on and what you're wanting. That's, my product manager hat is worn when I hang out in the Facebook community. And this is a different way for me to kind of experience what it is that happens, on the ground with you guys as you're trying to implement whatever strategy you're implementing using the Ontraport tool set. And it was cool. There's I expected a lot of more challenges and cranky clients and who knows what, stuff we couldn't answer. But it wasn't like that at all. It was a lot of happy clients and a lot of questions and answers that we had and a lot of stuff that we could do to help. It was a great experience. And I also did not fail to notice that there were some recurring themes among the questions that were asked. And I thought it might be worthwhile after kind of like putting together my thoughts on that experience to do a little series of I don't know if it's going to be Training Tuesdays. Maybe we'll just do it in Training Tuesday. I thought maybe we'd do some blog posts. I don't know what. But a little series on the most common challenges, questions that I noticed and that we get in the support team, and see if we can't help you stop making those mistakes, maybe in advance of making them even. And the first thing that I thought we'd start with is the top 4 questions or mistakes that y'all are making using the campaign builder. Definitely some stuff that I heard over and over again. Fortunately, they're all really easy solutions, really easy to fix. But shoot, you guys don't want to be calling up support, having that feeling of being confused or having a campaign go wrong because the setting is wrong or whatever. So let's just knock this out in advance. Maybe if you are putting together a campaign, if you're new to the platform, maybe even if you've been around for a while, it would be worth taking a few minutes to watch this video and see if you can avoid some of the stuff that we hear about all the time in support. So, as you know, I'm Landon Ray, CEO, top 4 mistakes clients make with campaigns and how to stop it. Number 1, wrong settings. Who can activate this trigger? So we're just gonna dive in here. I'm gonna skip over to my actual account. So this is probably the number 1 or 2 issue that we see. Let's see. I got a bunch of random stuff here. I don't know. Maybe I'll just try this one. So there are a few important concepts that if you don't have these nailed down, you're gonna mess some stuff up. The first couple of them have to do with some key settings. And so these key settings are on these triggers. Triggers are just like goals, except for they're always at the top here. They're what gets you onto the campaign or onto a particular path in the campaign. So when you click this sucker, there are 2 really crucial settings right here, and you gotta get these right. If you don't get them right, well, they're gonna do something other than what you hoped that they would do. So let's make sure that we get those 2 things right. The first one being, who can activate this trigger? So there are contacts in your account, right? And if you have it set up such that any contact in your account can activate this trigger, that means that when this trigger is activated, that is when this trigger happens, in this case, when contact is added to the tag time between, they will be, any contact in their account, whether they're on this map or not, will be added to that spot on the trigger, maybe, depending on some of the other settings. But in general, if they're not, if they're in your account and this trigger is activated, they're going to get moved onto this campaign and they're going to get added there. One of the things that I notice is that people just kind of maybe have a wrong mental picture of what triggers and goals are. I think of them like scanners. What they are doing is constantly scanning your account, scanning, and they're looking for any change to, in this case, because this is a contacts campaign, they're looking for any change to any contact record in your account. And then as soon as it detects a change, and that can be a field is changed, a form is filled out, you know, a page is visited, a product is purchased, basically any change that happens in that contact record, as soon as it detects a change, it runs through all the triggers and all the goals in all your campaigns to see if that change triggered anything. And if so, it's going to move the contact on down the path. All right? So you can think of triggers and goals like scanners, always looking for changes in the contact record. If there's no change, nothing's going to happen. They're looking for changes. So where are they looking? In this particular case, it's any contact in the account. There's another setting here, and that is any contact on this map. You got to look out for this setting, because in most cases, look at this. When I add a trigger, the default is any contact in account most of the time. However, there are cases where we change the default behavior there, and it's going to say any contact on the map. Most notably, if you use the today is date setting, you can see it just changed. As soon as I put the today is date on here, it changed to any contact on this map. The reason is we don't even let you use any contact in the account in that particular case, just because it's too prone to disastrous errors, and that's why we stopped allowing you. But the default behavior is any contact on the map. I'm sorry. The default behavior is any contact in the account, but make sure that it is set that way, because if not, you may not get people added to your campaign when you expect it to. All right, so that's number one. What is number two? It's the very next setting. Wrong settings again. What happens if they're already on the map? So here's the thing. There are lots of cases where if people are already on the map, when this trigger or goal is, you'll notice that the goals have the same settings, right? They're just about the same. When this trigger or goal is triggered, sometimes if they're already on the map, you want to move them to this location, to this element. Sometimes you want to not do that. Sometimes you want to add them again. So lots of different possibilities for what happens when a trigger or a goal is activated, but the contact is already on the map. So in this particular case, it says if the contact is already on the map, then move them here when this is triggered. All right? So that's pretty obvious. If they're already on the map somewhere, you're going to move them to this spot, and then what's going to happen? They're going to just move on down to the next. Right? So that's how it goes. However, when you add a new trigger, that is not the default behavior. The default behavior is to ignore this trigger. So if your contact is already on the map, then this trigger gets activated, we're just going to ignore it. We're going to pretend that it didn't happen, and we're going to leave the contact wherever it was on the map. So we get a lot of questions saying, why didn't this trigger work? And the answer is often because you've got it set to ignore the trigger if they're already on the map and the contact is already on the map. So you can change that. You can change it to move here when triggered. So if they're already on the map, it'll take them from where they were and move it to this new spot. And then there's a third one, which is add here again. It's possible and common for a single contact to be on a campaign map in more than one place at the same time. So if you set it to add a contact here again, if they're already on the map, then it's not going to move them. It's going to leave them where they were and add them again. So they'll continue down the path that they were on, and they'll start a new path wherever the trigger or goal was activated. So it's important to get that right. There's reasons we have those settings. There's different use cases. When I make maps, I'm constantly using all these different settings. So it really, you just kind of have to think it through how you want your campaign to perform and make sure you get those settings right. Okay, so that is definitely number one and number two in my experience. What is number three? Okay, using conditions instead of goals. This is definitely a confusion that happens. Okay, first of all, let's talk about what triggers and goals are again. Triggers and goals are like scanners. They only get activated when a change happens. So they're looking for changes to contact records. And when the change happens, it's going to see if it matches and if the conditions are met. There was a change to this contact record. Did the change happen to be that this particular tag was added? If so, then it's going to ask, well, does it match these conditions? In this case, there's no conditions, but this has also got to be true in order for this to get activated. And then, and if so, then they're going to move that contact there or do whatever it's supposed to do, and then down they go, right? Now, goals work the same way, same exact setup. If this happens, then if this happens and this is true, if the goal happens and the conditions are true, then we're gonna, well, what are we gonna do? We're gonna move the contact down here, typically, right? Move the contact here. That'll be the default behavior. Move them from where they are and add them to the goal there. And then we'll just move down to the next step immediately, because nobody sits on goals or triggers. They just go there and then they move down immediately. Okay, so a condition is different. A condition is a sort of an if-then sort of statement, right? Or it's like a true-false statement. So what is it? It's a question. Is this thing true, right? Is this attribute of a contact true? So, often you'll use field as value. So is first name equal to Landon? Okay, so that's the question. Is this true? And then if it's true, then the contact's going to go down here. If it's false, the contact's going to go down there. Now, the thing to understand about conditions is that they only act on the contact when the contact arrives at that spot on the map. This isn't like a trigger. It's not scanning for contacts to see when that thing becomes true. Instead, it's going to have to be, the contact's going to need to show up there at that point on the map, and then it'll separate them according to the values. Typically, where I saw this question coming up is that people were doing this. They were saying, I add them to the map, I send an email, and then I wait and I send an email, so stuff like that, and then they would say, they would put a condition here, and the condition would be, did they click the email? And what they were hoping was that when the email was clicked, that this person would be moved down and either moved to the left or the right, or something like that. But that's a confusion. That is actually an excellent use for a goal. That's exactly what goals do, is that it scans for changes. A click of an email updates the contact record, and so that's a change. And the system will scan for that, and you can set that up as a goal, and then when that happens, it'll move them down, and you can move through the path here. You can also set this up, you can also set up a link click here in a condition, but it's only going to happen, the system's only going to sort of make that determination at the appropriate moment, which is after this email's sent, and then after this wait happens, and then after this email's sent, then boom, the contact is going to move right down there to the condition, and then they're going to move on to either the yes or the no, and then that's going to be it. There's no moving contacts to conditions. It's not a scanner that's looking out. It's just waiting for contacts to end up on that element, and then it's going to filter them back and forth. So important to understand the difference. Goals are constantly scanning and moving contacts around. Conditions are just waiting for contacts to filter down to that element, and then making a determination whether they should go down the yes path or the no path at that moment, and then that's it. So that's the difference between conditions and goals. Important to get that right. What else do we got here? Number 4. Getting contacts on the campaign. So here's how this support ticket goes. Somebody chats in, they say, hey, I have here, this is a good example. I have 1,000 contacts that have the tag time between, and then I came to campaigns and I added this trigger, and that says when contact is added to the tag time between, then move them here, but nothing happened. And the reason that nothing happened is because this isn't a retroactive process, right? Triggers are only looking for changes. So if the fact that somebody already had this particular tag, when you create this trigger here, it's not going to just like automatically pull all those people, in when you do that, because it's looking for changes. So if going forward, if you add the tag to contacts, then that's a change. The system will notice that change, and then they'll be pulled in here. So this will work great if you set this up and then you went and tagged all those people. And it'll work great for anybody who is tagged in the future, but it's not going to automatically look for all contacts who match this condition and who match this trigger and then immediately pull them in. It's not a retroactive system. So again, it's a scanner that's looking for changes. So if you wanted to add all the people that had that tag, then you would just do that manually one time, because it's a one-time process, right? And so what I would do is I would, when you add people to campaigns, they're going to get added here. See, it says added to campaign. If contact starts here, if they're added manually, okay? So I would just, I'm going to go, in a second I'll show you, I'm going to go to contacts and I'm going to grab all those people with that tag, and I'm going to add them to the campaign, and they'll get added to this element. And then they'll go down to this go-to, and then boom, they'll get sent over there. And so the effect will be the same. So just to show you how I do that, I would create a group. I would say tag, contact tags, contains time between, and then I'll say tagged time between. And that's the title of my group here. And then boom, the 4 contacts. And then what I will do is select all in the group and add them to the campaign. Time between, what was it? Time between, and submit. And then in a couple of minutes, those people will all be added to that campaign. So we can go back and look, and we'll see that they will end up added to, well, the campaign's paused, so it's not even going to work, but they'll be added right here to the campaign and then moved on down the road. Okay, so that is number 4. Gosh, that's about it in terms of the main questions that get asked about campaigns. Although I've got a bonus one. And this is a question. It's not a problem. People aren't saying, hey, my thing's broken. They're calling up and saying, hey, my stats aren't right. And I don't understand. I've put 17 people on the map, and only 14 are showing up on this particular element. And so that's a very common question. And there are a number of reasons that might be the case. I just wanted to point out a couple quick ones here to try and save you a little bit of a hassle. The first one is that when you come to performance mode, when you load up a campaign that's already been published, it'll drop you into performance mode here so you can see the stats. It's also going to have a date range, which is by default the last 30 days. So what does that mean? It means it's going to show you all the contacts who were at, all the stats on the screen are relevant. You know, they're only showing you the contacts that were added to this map in the last 30 days. You can switch it to all-time data, and then you'll see, and you can click apply, and then you'll see contacts that were added, for, you know, at any time. And the reason we don't default to all-time data is because on some very large maps, it takes a while to load up all that data, and we just don't want to slow you down. So we default it to the last 30 days. And so that's one of the things. Hey, where are all my people? Just make sure you've got the date range right. And that's going to show you everybody that's added. The other thing, and I'm not going to go through all the different possibilities, but the other couple of things that that you will, I think the main other thing to understand is that you're only going to see, these are unique contacts, right? So if you're like testing, this is what happens a lot. People are testing and you're like, I added myself here. I'm trying to test this campaign. I added myself here. And then I added myself here again. And then I added myself here again. And then I added myself here again. But it still only says one, you know, at the top or whatever. So the reason for that is because it's unique contacts. That's what it is. So if the same contact has been on the same element more than once, it's still going to show one. So it's the unique contacts that have been to this element is what these numbers represent. And so that is an important thing to understand when you're looking at these stats. And the last thing I will tell you is that we definitely see people getting confused about their stats when they edit their campaigns after the campaign has been running a while. So you have a campaign, it's running, you got stats all over the place, and then you come in here and you edit it, and you delete some stuff and you move it all around, and then you publish it again, and then you look at your stats and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. I've got 47 people, and then it says 17, and then it says 62 or whatever. And that's because we don't like reset the stats just because you reorganize some stuff. We leave that. So you're gonna notice if you start moving stuff around after people have gone through your map that the stats aren't wrong. They're right. It's the number of people that have been to that element, the unique number of people that have been to each element. But it might not make like obvious sense because some stuff has been deleted, some stuff has been added. You never know. You can always go back and see your previously published versions to kind of get a sense of what the map looked like at various times, so you can kind of remind yourself of what you might have done. But those are the most common reasons for sort of not understanding the numbers that you're looking at. It's either you've got the wrong time frame, you aren't understanding that these are unique contacts, or you've kind of scrambled your map after you had some data on there already, and then it doesn't make sense to you. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to just keep this short because I know this is kind of you're only going to watch this video if you're trying to kind of brush up on your skills. I don't want to waste an hour of your time, but yeah, those are the things that we hear about kind of day in and day out around Campaign Builder. If you have any other questions that you've been confused about, feel free to post them in the comments below, and we'll get them taken care of. Any questions that are burning over there? No, we're good. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for joining me again. Hey, it's going to be a couple of weeks. I'm going to Barcelona, going to Lisbon, going on vacation. So it's going to be, we're going to skip a couple of weeks of Training Tuesdays, so I'll catch you mid-June. Thanks for watching. See ya.